Welcome back once again, dear students. In today's scenario, we will focus on one more important concept of population, that is composition of population. In short, it means how the composition, how the population is made up of, what are its components, and these components, how they affect to the population of the particular area we shall be discussing in detail here. So there are a number of composition factors that we will be discussing, such as age, sex, urban and rural population, then literacy, marital status. These all things are very important from the population point of view. Let's try to discuss how these points impact on the population. The first composition, that is very important one, that is the age and sex composition, and this has lots of significance, especially for the current ongoing population and even for the future perspective also. Generally speaking, the age structures in the populations are divided in different age group categories, and this categorization is very important to understand the composition of age and sex of that particular country or region. So there are basically three categories of age groups made. The first one is 0 to 14 years, and especially in that we have children. Now, children generally called as dependent population because they are not working population, so they are dependent. From 15 to 59 years, these are adults, those who called as working or productive population, because these are mostly working in industries, having the jobs and supporting to their families. Next, and the last category of age we have, that is 60 years and above, and these are called as aged people, and they also come under the category of dependent population. Now if you take a look at here, the category number 1 and category number 3 are called as dependent population, and they are dependent on the second category, that is adult. So on working population, these two categories are dependent. Then what impact we will have? The impact is called as the great one, because if there are little bit changes into these three groups, definitely it impact a lot on the country's economy. Let's try to understand here. A higher working population is considered to be an asset for the country. If we have the second group more in that country, then country is called as the younger country, where the younger people, those who get or do the job, are called as the asset of that country. So because of that, the country can develop in a very fastest way. But at the same time, if you have the number of children in the population is high, it indicates young population, which in turns means that the region has high birth rate. Hence, the dependency ratio will be high. Suppose if we have the first group, that is 0 to 14 years of age, more in that particular country, definitely it represents that the birth rate is very high in that country, and these are the mostly people those who are dependent on the second category, so they are not workaholic, and that is mostly dependent population. Similarly, a growing population in the third age group indicates the aging population, and at the same time, if you just take a look at, there is a third category that is increasing in a large quantity. This means that we are going towards the old age group in a large extent, and that also is not good enough for the country's development, because first and the third category is mostly dependent category. So every country or any country which has the good number of second category, then it is called as well developed country or the developing country, because on third category we need to provide more expenditure on health care and taking care of their age. So this is how the age and sex composition matters a lot. This means in short we can understand country with the second group will be the best one and have the chances of development. Country with the first and the third one will slowly, gradually develop because of the problems. Next composition we have sex composition, and this is one of the important structural feature, and that is related to the number of male and female in the particular population, and that is called as sex ratio. It is generally defined as number of females per thousand males in the population. In short, how many female are there in the particular country for per thousand males. And it is important because it just tells us the status of women in the country. And in regions with the gender discriminations, the sex ratio is unfavorable for women. It generally demarcates what is the status given to the women. And wherever you see the fluctuations in this ratio, definitely there the conditions are not favorable for the women, and it shows gender discrimination. And such areas where there is a practice of female foeticide, female infanticide, and domestic violence against the woman are prevalent. Now wherever there is no proper sex ratio is maintained, there possibly we can see female foeticide, means the small children or small babies into the mother's homes are killed. The female infanticide, once the babies are born, and if it is considered, and if they are female, they are also means killed. And the domestic violence against the woman is also very prevalent, and because of this number of reasons, the number of women increases in a very rapid way. By nature, slightly more males are born than female, a typical ratio being 105 106 males for every 100 males. It is generally said that the male birth is more than the female. And typically, suppose if we have the 100 female births, in that we can have approximately 105 to 106 male births. That's a very typically formula we have. Then average sex ratio that is determined by the UN according to the 2015, they said that 983.3 females to the every 1000 males. That is the ratio of the whole world as an average in the report has been published. The highest recorded sex ratio is located in Curacao, which is 1218 females per 1000 males. So here number of females are more than the males. And at the same time, in 2015 we have the lowest sex ratio in Qatar, where we have only 308.3 females per 1000 males. So we can understand that it is very less number of females per 1000 males. So one point, as a part of activity, you can try to find it out, the highest sex ratio country and the lowest sex ratio country according to the 2021 data. Just try to find it out so you can understand which countries are there now in this race. The sex ratio is favorable for females in 139 countries of the world and unfavorable for them in the remaining 72 countries listed by United Nations. Means total 139 countries where the sex ratio is very optimum and good one, but there are total 72 countries where there is no proper sex ratio is maintained. In general, in Asia there is a very low sex ratio, and in that we have countries like China, India, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Afghanistan, and these countries are most probably having lower sex ratio. So let's try to find it out something more about other information related to the sex ratio. Here we can see on other extremes it is greater part of Europe including Russia, where the males are in minority. But if you happen to go to Europe, you can try to find it out that easily the males are less than the female. A deficit of males into the population of many European countries is attributed to better status of women and an exclusively male dominated out migration to different parts of the world in the past. Wherever there are female numbers are more, they can enjoy their freedom and they can attribute in a better status in the society. And last one, we can see the sex ratio in India is a matter of concern because today in India we have only 950 female for per 1,000 male. This is what the Indian sex composition or sex ratio we have. Next important structural composition, that is called as rural and urban. As the word itself suggests, how much population lives in rural area and how much in urban areas. That also matters a lot. People living in villages and people living in cities. And this is very significant term because here we have the geographical distribution of people according to these areas, villages also and cities also. The percentage of rural population is higher in farm-based agriculture countries. Means the countries which are agriculturally dependent, these countries population mostly lives in villages. But the countries which are highly industrialized, highly developed in industries, here we can see the more population is shifted towards the urban areas. Today, around 54% of the world population is urban, while the 46% is a rural. From the world's point of view, majority of the population lives in the cities. That is 54% and 46 lives in rural areas. Now, for a long time now, there has been nearly universal flow of population from rural into the urban areas. Now we can just try to see that the most of the people are shifting from the villages to the urban areas. Now, these urban areas, there are some reasons behind it because today we can see the societies are very highly urbanized, especially in Western countries, in the Northern Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand, in temperate South America, in North America, and here the proportion of urban population is exceeding 75% because of the better facilities, living facilities, and the high standard life. Many of the developing countries of Asia and Africa, here the urbanization process has only recently begun. Just now in the developing countries, the urbanization started. So, less than one third of the population lives in urban areas. But the rate of growth of urban areas has shown a great increase. As the process started now in Asia and Africa, slowly we are able to see there is a lots of growth into the urban areas in these continents too. The general rule for developing countries is that the rate of growth of the urban areas is twice that of the population as a whole. So in developing countries, the urbanization is increasing twofold than the population. Means they are trying to provide the better and better facilities in the urbanized areas. So these countries are also trying to be urbanized one at a great extent. A prominent feature of population redistribution, especially in developing countries, is the growth of major cities. Almost half of the world's population lives in the cities. Slowly, because of the facilities available into the urban areas, the population is shifting in a very great way towards the cities. And that's why today we can see almost half of the world's population lives in cities. And it is projected that in the future, about 8 billion city dwellers in the world by 2030, and 80% of them would be living into the developing countries. By the 2030, we may have the 8 billion population of the world, and out of that, 80% would be living into the developing countries, especially in cities. So this is how the rural and urban compositions we can try to understand that. Now,